Hello, everybody. My name is Felix. I am a software engineer at Meta and the tech lead on the Immersive Web SDK project. And today I have a very, very short tutorial for you on how you can deploy your IWSDK slash WebXR applications using GitHub Pages. I want to mention that this is not at all required for the competition, that we were not requiring you to use GitHub Pages. You can deploy it any way you want. I think the only thing required for the competition in terms of like deployment for us is that you have a link that's easily accessible, that's public, that can be easily accessible to users and judges. And that's it. You can deploy it using your existing workflow. If you have one that works, that's great. You can feel free to ignore this. But this is more for folks who are newer to this area and not as familiar as established workflows. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive into it. The first thing, first step in this tutorial is to set up a GitHub repo. It's pretty straightforward. If you have a GitHub, if you don't have a GitHub account, go sign up for one, create a repository, push your content. There are a million tutorials out there that can teach you how to do this step by step. After you have a GitHub repo set up with your content in, you're looking at something like this. And at this point, you can navigate the settings, pages, and then under build and deployment, select GitHub Actions. So that's step number one. Step number two is to adjust Vite config and asset paths. Yeah, so for this step two is more specific to IWSDK. If you are not using IWSDK, you might have a slightly different setup. So you have to figure out how to do this for your setup, or maybe you don't have to adjust anything for your setup. But for Vite, you need to declare the base path. And what is the base path? Essentially is, well, it depends on how you're deploying your application. So let's say we're deploying this with GitHub Pages. What you will end up with is usually the link you will end up with is usually your GitHub user ID dot github.io/project name. So in this case, the base path is everything after the domain name. So the domain in this case would be your GitHub user ID.github.io. So for the sake of this example, I have this project named IWSDK-app. So in this case, my base path is just going to be IWSDK-app. So I set it up in vite.config.ts or JS, like so. And an additional step you want to double check is you wanted to make sure that all of your assets are using relative paths so that they can be resolved correctly. So if you're doing this directly from the create CLI that we have for IWSDK, you should be all set, but just double check that they are relative paths here. So that will be step number two. Step number three, rebuild and verify. This is, I think most people know what npm run build is. Basically, produce a dist folder with all of the content and asset bundled in so that you can use that and deploy it however way you want. Something that's pretty neat with Vite is that we also have a command called npm run preview, which you have to run after npm run build. Because it directly serves from the dist folder that you just created, and it gives you a nice view of what it's going to be like once you actually deploy it somewhere. So do the build and then do the preview and make sure everything is still working. If something happens at this stage, that means perhaps you don't have, perhaps the step two hasn't been completed correctly. Maybe there's a path issue, or if things are still broken, that may be something in your application. And for step four, we actually have two options in terms of step four. So the first option here, we're using GitHub Action config. This is, in my opinion, the easiest way to do, and it will trigger very nicely from every commit that you do. So what you want to do here is you can create a .github/workflow/ deploy.yml file and paste in the content from this. I'll show you this in just a second. I have an example repository up that you can copy everything from. And then you just commit, push, and check on the action in GitHub, and you are going to be all set. I can show you quickly what that looks like. Yeah, so for example, oh, whoops, that is not what I want. Yeah, so this, for example, is a new GitHub repository I set up for this example. So in our case, my app is just called IWSDK-app. And as you can see, I have all of my things here, and I have the .github/workflow deploy YML, which I think you will work out of the box for all of the IWSDK applications, but you can also tweak it for your liking. It is very simple. The steps are basically, hey, let's check out to our current state in this repository, set up the Node.js environment, install dependencies, run build, and then upload artifact and deploy pages. And yeah, you can adding extra steps or like removing things or adding things in between, moving files, processing assets, whatever you like. If you want to have them here, you can. And after that, you will see that, I wanted to really quickly go back to before, and you can just see that we have under build and deployment here, we are selecting GitHub Actions instead of deploy from a branch. And after that, once you have the deploy.yml pushed, you will see your deploy to GitHub Pages workflow showing up under your Actions tab. And we're not going to do we're not going to do a fresh push right here, but I can show you what it's going to be looking like. So essentially, every time you push a commit to the main folder, to the main branch, sorry, this will trigger this workflow, and you can just run this workflow. I'll show you what it's going to look like. It is going to be, and we can click on all workflows, and this is the one that I just triggered. If we click into it and click into it to see, so it's already finished the checkout process. It's setting up Node.js, and now it's installing dependencies, running the build process, and it should be done in just a second. Okay, so we're uploading artifact and deploying to GitHub Pages. Once this is done, it's done. So if like we're seeing like there's a green tick over here, that means the process is finished completely successfully. And so at this point, we can go to settings and go to pages and see that your site is live at this link. So Felix TRZ is my GitHub username. So and the application is deployed at felixtrz.github.io/iwsdk-app. We can go here, and as you can see, I have immersive web emulation runtime already enabled. So we can just check whether we can enter XR with emulation, and indeed we can. And yeah, that's it. That's option number one for step 4. So essentially with this action config, you can trigger this workflow every single commit, and it will automatically deploy for you. Another option is using the gh-pages npm package. The reason why you would choose this is that the the previous option, the easier one, is does not support everything currently. I think, like, for example, if you're using something that, for example, one of our Vite plugins in the IWSDK ecosystem uses the KTX software for texture compression that is not currently out of the box supported on a GitHub Action workflow. So in this case, you might want to build on your local machine and then deploy that manually. So what you can do is you can install the gh-pages npm package as a dev dependency, and you can go into your repository on GitHub, navigate the settings pages, Remember, just now we were using GitHub Action. Right now, we're not going to do that. We're going to select deploy from a branch, and in the branch dropdown, select GH Pages and choose the slash or root folder, and then click save, and we're all good. Yeah, so by the way, sorry, you are meant to run the npm run deploy first before, so which will essentially build the thing, build the application locally and create this new branch for you, and then you can directly deploy from the new created branch, and you are all set. And yeah, so that's basically everything. And if you're interested to check out the first example, you can scan this QR code and copy things from the GitHub repository as needed. And yeah, so again, this is one of the ways. This is just one of the ways that we think is more convenient for people who are new to this. You can feel free to deploy your application in whatever way you want, as long as the link is public and accessible. And this is my cue to introduce my colleague, Jiaming, to talk about how you can deploy your WebXR application as PWA and distribute it through the Meta Horizon store. One thing I wanted to call out really quickly, this is also, again, not required for the competition. This is just informational. We highly recommend if you in the future want to open up a different distribution channel for your WebXR application, this is something that we highly recommend you looking into. Jimmy, take it away.
Sounds good. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Felix, for introduction. My name is Jianming, and I'm a software engineer in Meta Reality Labs. Let me start sharing my slides. One sec. Cool. So today we're going to talk about WebXR PWAs. Yeah, just like Felix had mentioned, this is not a requirement for this competition, but it opens up a brand new distribution channel for all immersive web applications. So, what is PWA and why PWA? PWA stands for Progressive Web Apps. It's a technique to wrap existing website into an APK that can be submitted to the store. Specifically for WebXR PWAs, you will be able to wrap a publicly accessible WebXR site into an APK file using the tools provided by Meta and submit to Meta Horizon Store. The users will be able to see your application listed in the Meta Horizon Store just as other immersive apps. They will be able to download it and see the app icon in their application library. And when they click the app icon, they will be brought into the immersive session directly, just as any other native immersive apps. And the best part of it is that you will be able to monetize via your WebXR PWAs using the in-app purchases. And the in-app purchases will be accessible via the digital goods API in JavaScript code. So just as on the right-hand side, we have the Elysium, which is a publicly accessible WebXR site. And right now it is also listed as an app in the Meta Horizon store. So to create your WebXR PWA, you have a couple of steps. First, you will need to prepare your WebXR site for PWA creation, and I'm using the IWSDK site as an example here. The first step you will need is to create your web manifest file. You name as manifest.json. And the format of it is like a pretty standard. It's like a metadata for your website. You have the name, you have the icon path, and the URL. This will be used as a baseline for the APK creation tool to start your APK creation flow. And you will need to put it under your public domain, such as mypwA.com slash manifest.json to make it publicly accessible. The second step is that you will need to let your IWSDK app to launch into Immersive directly right after the page is loaded. So the good thing for IWSDK is that we have a great helper function in the Word using word.launchxr to help you to launch the WebXR session. So you can just under your word.create function, right after the initialization is finished, you just call word.launchxr. By default, it will not create a WebXR session in the regular browser because we have a security check in the regular for the regular WebXR page in the browser, but it will do the work in the PWA scope. When the user click the PWA icon, it will bring the user into immersive directly. And here's some best practice suggestion. Because the user will be brought into the immersive session directly in WebXR PWA, we recommend you to implement a landing UI in the immersive session for the user to easily navigate into different menu pages in the PWA. So on the right-hand side, there's an example of the immersive landing page for Elysian. You can see we have a couple of buttons here, and you can use the panel UI system that we provided in IWSDK to easily create a landing UI like this for the use case for WebXR PWA as well as regular immersive web. The second step will be creating your APK. So this APK will be a wrapper on top of your website. So it will pull up several metadata from your manifest file that you have just created. And it will try to load the web page every time the user launch the APK. So whenever you have a new version of your website that need to be deployed, you don't necessarily need to create a brand new APK and submit to the store again. You can just upload your deployment to your public domain. And since the APK will reload the latest website every time it launch, the user will automatically just get the latest version when they start to launch the WebXR PWA app. So to start, you need to use a tool called Bubble Wrap, and we have this is a open source tool developed by Google, but we have our own fork under the MetaQuest repository. Um, Include some tools specifically for the Meta Horizon OS. So you will need to pull the tool from the MetaQuest GitHub repository and run npm install and npm run build to build that CLI tool. And in Macro, you will need to map your bubble wrap command line to the build bubblewrap.js file. And I have some example for both the macOS and Windows here. And the next step is to initiate the bubble wrap CLI to create your APK. So the first step will be you need to create your PWA project file, PWA project folder and CD into it. And you run bubble wrap in it with your manifest URL and dash dash MetaQuest. This will trigger the flow for the Horizon WebXR PWA creation flow for Horizon OS specifically. And the CLI will pop up a couple of menus for selection of different fields. And we have a detailed instruction for how you can input the values under the developer hub for Meta. And once you've finished all those steps, it will finish the initialization of that PWA project, and you can simply run bubble wrap build to trigger the APK build workflow. And once that's done, you will find a file called app release sign.apk under your project folder, and you will be able to sideload this APK to your headset for testing using adb install that APK file path. And the final step is to prepare a digital asset link to a website. Digital asset link is a mechanism for the browser to validate the ownership of your website and the APK file. We don't want any random people to create APKs for any publicly accessible domain. For example, we don't want any random developer to create a PWA APK for Google.com. And as a developer, you also don't want any random people to create APKs for on behalf of you. So this is the mechanism to verify both the website domain and the APK belong to the same developer. It is done via comparing the fingerprint of the APK and the fingerprint listed in the asset link.json file under that domain. So to create the digital asset link file, first you will need to get the fingerprint of your signature of the signing key that you used for the APK. So there's a command line called key tool list. So if you use key tool and you input the key store file that you use to sign your APK as a part of the bubble wrap CLI, you will get an output of a SHA-256 fingerprint and use that to run the bubble wrap fingerprint add command. It will create an asset link.json file, just like we have on the bottom right. The most important part is the package name and the fingerprints here. Note that this is a JSON array, so you will be able to add multiple entries here for different APK files. For example, I can have PWA app 1 here as well as PWA app 2 under the same domain so that I can create multiple APKs under the same domain. And then you will need to put your asset link.json file under the domain slash dot well-known slash asset links.json. You will have to use this well-known slash asset links.json file under the domain directly to make that work because that's the only path the browser is gonna to look for the asset link verification. Once that's done, you'll be able to launch your APK successfully on the headset. The final step will be submitting your APK to Meta Horizon Store. This step will be exactly the same as other native app has. So you can just create and manage your app under your developer center. The URL will be developer.meta.com/horizon/manage. Once you've created your app, you'll be able to upload your APK in MQDH MetaQuest Developer Hub, just as other native immersive apps. And then you will follow the steps to create a submission to the Meta Horizon Store and trigger the review process for your app. And once that's done, your PWA will be publicly listed in Meta Horizon Store. We have a QR code here for the our documentation on the developer.meta.com, and you can find all the related information here.